Good morning, everyone. It's good to be here. Um, I'm enjoying this cool weather. I don't know if I have the majority consensus on that, but really like this time of year. It's a good time of year to work outside. Also, it's got one brief accident I want to talk about. We had a contact injury um, the other day that a couple weeks ago. Um, just a routine job. Seems like the way it always happens. Guys changing out of C1, been hit by a car. Straight line three-phase pole, of course. And Friday afternoon, right after quitting time, people are going to ball games, going out to eat. No telling what their mind was on. Took a routine job. That's one of the easiest things we can do. Uh, is C1, no telephones, no communication, not anything else on the pole. And the guys just got in a hurry. Uh, Inconvenience. At that time of day, they didn't use proper cover up. They didn't do a job briefing. No one had reflective clothing on. Just a whole bunch of things that because of the time of day because they don't normally work that way. I know they don't normally work that way. And it was just one of those situations that always seems to come back and bite us that we do get complacent. We do get in a hurry sometimes. And, I always preach watching out for each other, and called in three or four more guys after two standby personnel went out and made the determination to change the pole out. Several people on the ground. No one on the ground even knew that the guy had made contact. So that kind of bothered me a little bit that, I try to stress that we watch out for each other, whether you're in the bucket, whether you're in an office setting or wherever, loading poles, uh, it doesn't matter. Every one of us are in this together, and we need to take care of each other. So, uh, the absolute, without question, uh, the young man being okay is the most important thing. But I also want to caution y'all on how it's changed their facility since this accident has happened. Rules and regulations, people looking over people's shoulders, even insurance companies. What are we doing to keep this from happening again? Processes and procedures that people got comfortable with that in a normal time, normal day, they done correctly. But this one time that they done something just to speed up the process, or just got complacent that it caught them. And trust me, it's changed everything. It's changed the people that's got involved with it, and I don't think they normally work that way. I've said that before. I really don't. But because they made that decision to do their job that way, that day, that particular time, it's changed their whole operation. And and I think that's the keynote right there is we make decisions every day that can affect us the rest of our life. We don't think about them because most of the time everything works out well. But we make decisions every single day that could possibly affect our lives and a lot of people around us. So I just thought that was interesting this morning. It's a good. The young man's going to be fine. He had an entrance and exit wound, but he went to the hospital. Excuse me, and they sent him back home that day. And he returned to work the next Monday, but the work he returned to the next Monday was a whole lot different than the work he had on Friday. So just wanted to bring that up to everyone. This month's program is communication and emergency communication. Going to see several times throughout the program. We're going to talk about your company policy as far as Mayday calls or just communication in general. Um, a lot of this comes straight out of the APPA and OSHA manual, as referenced at the end, but also some of it is just good common practice that good radio etiquette that we need to use every day on the radio. I'm going to emphasize throughout the program, I think the importance of using two-way radios. Cell phones are a great asset to the job, but radios alert everyone. I go to a utility that's got a big placard sign on every gate, every fence that electric fence gate that opens. It says, "Is your radio on?" Switching, bypassing breakers, Mayday calls, especially if you make those over the radio, there may be a crew close by that could come and help, and we're going to talk about that kind of thing. I just think we're kind of getting away from radios with the introduction of cell phones. I think cell phones is invaluable on the job. I really do. I think as long as people do not abuse them, they are absolutely, they can be a big asset. So communication is the act of transferring information from one place, person, or group to another. 5 skills that we should be aware of for being a good communicator, and is listening. Listening is recognized as the most important part of being a good communicator. Careful listening creates an environment that allows everyone else to feel free to participate. Listening is an acquired trait, I guess is the best way to put it, that I know. How we listen to somebody in a conversation, whether they have our full attention, whether we're interested in what they're saying to us is, are we listening to reply, or are we listening to hear what they're saying? I thought that listening is something that I try to be better at. I try to let people finish their sentence before you reply. I'm guilty of that. It's a conscious effort of mine to get better at that, but it is a struggle sometimes. And I think that the way we listen and the way our body mannerisms and stuff in a conversation says a lot about how we treat the people we're talking to. Straight talk conversation is the basis for communication. Small talk can build trust and detect problems. It doesn't necessarily have to be 100% job related or whatever, situation related. Sometimes just developing a conversation and a communication with somebody, and how to communicate with different people, different personalities. Small talk never hurts. Nonverbal communication signals are wordless. The way you look, listen, react speaks louder than words in most cases. That goes back to, are we giving these people the attention that they deserve when we talk to them, especially if you're in an authoritative position of some type. We really want to make everybody feel welcome and speak up. I talk a lot about job briefings, about everybody needs to be able to speak up. Hopefully we have the culture in our crews and everywhere throughout our company that people have the feel like that they're free to speak up if they have a problem, don't understand. One of the worst things you can do in a job briefing is not understand what you're supposed to do and when you're supposed to do it, but not have the confidence to speak up. I think we've got to get past that. Stress management: when you're under stress, you may misunderstand other people and send confusing nonverbal signs. People may think you just don't care. It goes back to the body language. Emotional control: be in control of emotions. If it provides you with tools to understand others, yourself, and the message you send. If you are excitable and out of control, so will everyone else be. I think that's very true. Leadership position, especially if you become excited. If anybody has ever participated or been involved in youth sports as an adult, I promise you that's where it's the most exaggerated. And it's basically the same way when you get a crew together or any group together, that if someone becomes excitable and maybe a little aggravated, that seems like it tends to bleed over to everybody else. So emotional control, I think, is one of the best parts about being communicating, being level-headed, trying to be the same tone, same choice of words, regardless of situation. I think is very important as well. Radio communication. Radios in the utility business are a way of life. They help us in countless ways. The two most important are safety and emergency. Switching orders, like I talked about earlier. If a crew bypasses a breaker out here today and they don't make it back in time, maybe to put it on the board or wipey board or wherever you keep those notifications. Standby crew goes out at night. If they call in on the radio and say, "Hey, we're going to bypass such and such control point," everybody has a possibility to hear it. I do think that handling our business over the two-way radio is very important. It just gives everybody the same information and the same access. So just keep that in mind. Mayday calls, why? Injured employee, vehicle accidents, sudden illness, all good reasons for Mayday calls. Some people don't use Mayday. Some people have code blue, code red. I've done witnessed that earlier in the month, this month, talking to some of my other instructors that they do not use Mayday. Doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter at all. But everybody in the company needs to be aware of it, that's what we do. I know we do Mayday calls at Pole Top Rescue, but we really don't. We really don't take the time to do that. How are we going to react in a Mayday call? If it's one of our co-workers, we have some really good friends we work with, and you see somebody get injured or a sudden illness or whatever, are we going to know? Are we going to remember all the pertinent information on a Mayday call? The best way to ensure that we do that is practice and to go over it. Whether you have a written policy or not, you can still practice it. You can still talk about the information that needs to be given. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. Be prepared, have all the information available. Done talked about practice. And of course, if you have a company policy, know what it is. Proper procedures if we're going to administer first aid or rescue. Radio office stated Mayday. Recommended we repeat it 3 times, regardless if you use Mayday, code blue, whatever your terminology is. That part is written that we should do it 3 times. Policy or situation dictates which you do first. Are you going to start first aid? Or are you going to make the Mayday call? What determines that? I feel like that most situations different situations will dictate doing different things first. Just be sure that's going to be your decision. No wrong decisions in a situation like that. But there again, in the stress of the moment, if we never practice or never try to visualize what we may do in that situation, I could see where it'd be stressful. I know how I would hope that I would react in a situation like that, but you don't actually know. You don't actually know until that situation arises, just how calm we can be or how thoughtful we can be or how we can remember the process. Speak clearly, try to speak slowly. I think that's going to be really hard for me to do. If we got, like I said, a coworker, a friend that's injured or sudden illness or whatever, then, it doesn't have to be one of our guys. We could be driving down the road in an intersection and see a car accident or stuff that we could be an asset to making that happen. Identify yourself by vehicle or crew name. Not sure this particular one is spelled out in the APPA manual. I think it would be a good idea from the simple standpoint, if somebody has given you that job, that work order, somebody should know the route because of where you leave from and where you're going, the route and the job site. Somebody should know if something is left out in the transmission of a Mayday call. It just it helps identify the crew, and whoever dispatches the jobs or sends the jobs out, they should have a decent idea of where you are. Even if it's a trouble call, if you've been dispatched to a trouble call, people should know from where because the work orders is handed out. So that's kind of iffy if you want to do that. but I do think it's just another way to ensure that we can keep track for personnel. Give your location, your 911 address. Should come in a job briefing. You know, it's just been the last couple of or few years that we have really demanded that the 911 address be a part of the job briefing. If you think about it, we've added that to our normal list, and it kind of surprises me. I mean, that's one of the most important things that we need to know. If crew allows, you may be able to send someone to meet the crew numbers allow. You may be able to send someone to meet the ambulance or EMTs or whoever because of the location that you may be at. You know, if we're in a wooded area or a rural area, we may not have a 911 address exactly with us. So the crew numbers of crew members makes a lot of difference in several aspects of the Mayday call. Again, know your company policy. Never ever give victim's name. Most people have a social media policy. Sometimes things happen very innocently. Utility a couple of years ago, I was at, they had a car accident on a Saturday night. A car hit a guy wire, broke the top of the pole out. Standby crew goes out. This young man takes a picture, posts it on Facebook, and says, "This is what I'm gonna spend my Saturday night." Real innocent, didn't intend no harm, but the parents of the young man that wrecked the car seen it on Facebook before they were notified of the accident. So you know, if you have a you know, that's something that we probably need to think about, probably need to allow a little time. And I also know that some people have policies against doing that anyway. But if you don't have, that's just something to think about. That goes along with never giving the victim's name. We want to go get family members if possible. We want to drive them or take care of them. We don't want those people driving knowing that their loved one or whatever's may be injured really bad. Don't want to have two accidents because of one. Person calling for emergency is not the only one who needs proper training to handle the situation. Who's going to take your Mayday calls in the middle of the day? Who's going to take your Mayday calls at night? Do we know that? Do we know what's going to, because of the stress of people on site at the Mayday call, we probably need to have a list, a list of questions that the person taking the Mayday call needs to be sure that all that information is gained. Some practice with those folks is just as important, if not more so, than the people that's going to make the Mayday call. They need to be sure and acquire the right information, and putting it over the radio. Wouldn't hurt for everybody everybody out here to have you know, something to write with, something pretty close by. For the simple reason is you may be able to help in a rescue situation. You know, if you're away from the truck, we may have may have to help with the transporting someone to get to the vehicle. Just all kinds of things that we need to be sure that the correct information is passed. So the person receiving the Mayday call is just as important as the person giving it. If you're receiving it, repeat the message back, of course, clearly and slowly. Call the nearest EMS, exact location. Nearest intersection and landmarks, be careful not to use in-house landmarks. I know there were several of those on our system over the years, and we talked about it from time to time. We had a place called a bee tree breaker, and in my 26 years there, plus the years I've been here, there's never been a bee tree at that breaker, but I suppose years ago there was. And I know you all have some of the same situations out here, that these locations have been handed down from crew to crew, generation to generation. And, you know, outside of this framework of this building, nobody knows what that is. Nobody knows where those locations are. So be sure and guard against that. A lot of times, even from crew to crew or even office personnel, things may be called different, may have its own pet name. So we need to be sure to guard against that. Receiving a Mayday call, if you needed law enforcement, accident, car accident or vehicle or any kind. It could be an irate customer. There's all kinds of different things that the person receiving the Mayday call may need to call the law enforcement. Also, utility not too far from here, a couple of years ago, found out the hard way that if you don't notify OSHA in an allotted time for certain incidents, there will be monetary fines. So, the person receiving the Mayday call, if those certain people are not alerted, they need to make sure that happens to follow OSHA reporting protocol. Cell phone use on a Mayday call or an accident, I think, is very useful. The ideal situation to me would be someone make a Mayday call over the radio, as well as someone using 911 if you have cell phone service. I don't know if y'all have complete coverage over your whole system. I know the system I came from, I would say at least 35%, maybe even 40% of our system did not have cell phone coverage. So it's, that kind of takes that out of the equation, puts even more importance on the two-way radios. But if crew numbers allow, and you can use a cell phone and a radio, have someone call the EMTs, emergency medical services, on a cell phone, but still make a Mayday call. And we've, kind of beaten a dead horse, but we're wanting people to come by and help. We're wanting people close by. If you can hear over the radio that you're close, can come and may offer assistance. That's what we're after. So a cell phone can be used to call 911. However, it's popular opinion, mine included, that a Mayday should still be called on the radio. Another crew could be close, rescue situation that can enable transportation. And another thing, the most important thing I think about a cell phone calling 911 is all personnel are trained in first aid. Put the phone on speaker. They can assist you on first aid and CPR, especially if it's a sudden illness and we may have trouble determining exactly what we need to do. That's going to be really handy for the 911 operators to help walk us through that. They are trained, they know how to do that, and that'd just be an invaluable asset to me. So, like I said, a cell phone on the job can be a distraction. It can cause a lot of problems, but also if they're used correctly, a cell phone on the job can help anything from the normal everyday use. If you're unsure about, if you're building a bank, you're unsure about whether we're going to float the high side or ground it or anything, you can Google it on your phone. Metering, if you look hard, you can find anything out on this out there that you want to find, but it also can be abused. Most companies have a written emergency policy. If you're unaware of your policy and its contents, I ask to see it and practice. If you don't have one, then maybe we can just sit around over a rainy day, or maybe 15 minutes before quitting time or whatever, and let's talk about among yourself about what we need to cover on a Mayday call, and everybody that's possibly could receive that Mayday call needs to be involved as well. I hope that you guys never ever have to use a Mayday call, but if we do, time is of the essence, and if information passed should be hopefully we're going to practice enough it becomes second nature that we can do it. Still no guarantees in the stress of the moment that that's going to happen, but practice makes perfect. Day-to-day radio, this communication, this is just kind of a kind of a pet peeve of mine through the years of just a little bit of training, just a little bit of coordination of how we speak and on the radios and deliver our information, and whether it's important enough to where we need to be on the radio. Just little stuff like that most of the utilities have locations with poor cell phone or no cell phone signal. So we're going to talk about radio etiquette just a little bit. Be sure that certain previous transmission is signed off. Most of the time, years ago, we used to, the older folks that when I came to work would always use the word over after their transmission. And then once they completely finish their transmission or their conversation, it'll be over and out. Most people now will give truck number, name, or whatever and say clear whenever their transmission is completely finished. Doesn't matter as long as everybody understands that the airways are clear and that you're ready to speak. Engage the mic. Most of us have repeaters on our radio system, so once you engage the mic, you need to pause just for a second before speaking, or your transmission is going to be cut short. Speak slowly and clearly again. Be direct and as few words as possible to get your information out that you want to have. And the biggest way to help do that is to know the information that you're going to have to transmit before you start your transmission. Control point numbers, maybe addresses, whatever, a list of materials you may need, the communication that you want to have. Be sure that you have all that information readily available before you begin the transmission. Sign off after transmission to alert others that the airways are clear. Just a common courtesy that we owe everybody here, that we're done, we're through transmitting, we have the information passed that we want to do, and we want to free it up for everybody else. In conclusion, the other person in our conversations deserves our full attention. It's an acquired trait. Some people's better at it than others. The best communicators I've ever talked to made me feel like that I was very important and what I had to say was important. And sometimes that's not the easiest thing to do. And so we need to strive to be a better communicator. A good job briefing is vital to having a good emergency plan. We should talk about if something happened, this is what we're going to do. If this happens, we're going to send Steve to the intersection of the road, the big long driveway, or road back maybe through the woods to meet the EMTs or whatever. Stuff like that needs to be talked about beforehand. If that's part of your job briefing, if it's not, then I urge you to make it a part of your job briefing. Cell phones can be an asset. We talked about those. Radio use is vitally important as well. And then, of course, use radio etiquette in all radio transmission conversations. Know your company policy and practice. I want to thank everybody for their attention today, and I hope everybody has a great day. If there's anything I can ever do for anybody, Steve knows how to get a hold of me, and or you can find my name and cell phone number and everything off of JTNS website. If there's any way I can help, I'd be glad to do so. Watch out for each other, regardless of what department we're in, and practice your Mayday calls, code red, whatever you want to call them. And be sure that we have an idea of what information we need to give. So, having said that, thank you all and be safe. I'll see you next month.